I'm not questioning that there's occasions where, yes, the team will need you, but is it always the case? Is it so much the case that you cannot disappear for 2 days or 3 days? Do they really need you? Or you're just a freaking micromanager who feels the need to be in control and you just cannot let go? Maybe your team would be better off if you disappeared for 2 days. The best thing that you can do for yourself, for your teams, and for your company is actually to take time off, or take time reflecting. Not time doing, but time being. Let go of your attachment to outcomes. We live constantly under stress because we want to achieve stuff, because we believe that that stuff is going to make us happy. There's no reason to always be, stressed and under tension, and you're not going to achieve more because you're a jerk, right? You just relax, smile, be grateful. One day you're going to die. And then what? Then the business crashes? That's not healthy.
Hey, Fabrice, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sebastian. Very happy to be here with you.
Yes, and we just talked about a very important topic, taking time off. And you wrote a book about that, The Art of Retreats. And many listeners, they probably think now, hey, what is that about? I mean, normally we talk about how to get more done, how to be more efficient, how to leverage AI to be more productive, make more money. But now we want to talk about not doing anything at all. And why did you write this book? How did you came up with this idea, writing a book about retreats for CEOs and managers?
Well, the book came out of my personal experience and the experience that I have working with leaders. I noticed that in the corporate world, we have this belief very often that more is more. So productivity is what we chase. And so it's a little bit like the juggler, right? You're juggling balls. And so one day after practicing, you manage to juggle 5 balls. And success would be to be able to juggle 6 balls at the same time.
Or 7.
Or 7. And that's what we chase very often. I take a completely different approach, which is actually, once you reach a certain level of seniority and responsibility, the best thing that you can do for yourself, for your team, and for your company is actually to take time off, or take time reflecting. Not time doing, but time being. So that's a recipe that I apply to myself. We were just talking that you do that as well. You take time off.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, we get the best ideas not when we're sitting at our desk in front of a computer answering emails. We get our best ideas when we are. Some people, I always ask this question to the people I work with. They say, well, in the shower, walking in nature, walking my dog, playing with my kids, just daydreaming in my bed. You don't get your best ideas when you're cramming meetings one after the other. And so this idea of productivity, I think, occasionally is misdirected. So that's the genesis of the book.
I completely agree. I mean, I think now managers becoming more and more conscious that they only have a certain amount of energy, and they need to manage this energy wisely. I mean, also regarding sleep, for example, a couple of years ago, if you didn't sleep enough, if you slept only 4 or 5 hours, then you'll be a star. Then you say, hey, I can function with 4 hours of sleep. Now, luckily, thankfully, we know that this is really bad for your health, for your long-term health, for longevity, and people are more conscious about getting enough sleep for a start. And also, as you said, they're starting to getting conscious about taking time off and as you said, reflecting. And I do this. I mean, I'm just about to embark on another 3-month journey, and I really value this time, and it gives me so much energy, and it gives me so much, as you said, new ideas. And getting out of your normal day-to-day work is very important. But putting this all in a book is obviously another step. So I would love to understand, do you have a concept of how managers should design this time out, this time off? What advice would you give them?
Yes, and I come from the world of business, so I understand very well the pressure that leaders are under, and the constraints that leaders have, particularly when it comes to their free time. Very
Mm.
often, whatever little free time they have, they want to spend with their families, with their friends, or they want to spend their time doing activities that they enjoy, playing golf or watching TV or playing video games or what have you. Uh, the idea of saying, I'm going to take time off, but I'm not going to use it to play. I'm
Mm.
going to use it to reflect and
Yeah.
disconnect and be in a place of silence and solitude. That doesn't necessarily come naturally for leaders. I and that comes particularly from spiritual traditions. So every
Mhm.
spiritual tradition has this concept of retreat. And there's always been a time when you're seeking greater truth, greater sense of purpose, greater connection with reality and sense of meaning, sense of purpose. Spiritual seekers have always taken time off,
Yeah.
right? You have Jesus and the 40 days in the desert. You have all these traditions. You have the Buddhist retreats during the rainy season in Thailand. So we find this in virtually every spiritual tradition. And so my purpose is to marry the Western performance ideal
Mhm.
with the wisdom that comes from spiritual traditions. Because I live in Asia, I've been living in Asia most of my adult life. I'm very inspired by Eastern spiritual traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, yoga, etc. But we find that also in Christianity, for example, and in Islam. So it's not at all a specificity of Eastern spiritual tradition. So we marry, in a way, the quest for performance
Mhm.
and the quest for purpose or the quest for meaning. And that's exactly what the retreats are about. It's to say, I'm not giving up my ideal of performance. I'm a leader in charge of a corporation. I need to deliver profits. I need to deliver the bottom line. I need to deliver share price, what have you. But I'm going to do that while taking occasionally time to reflect, to retire from the world so that I can elevate my perspective. I'm not going to be constantly the nose on the wheel under pressure. I'm going to take time in silence, in solitude, to be able to see the big picture. And if you want, elevate
Yeah.
my consciousness, elevate my soul. So
Consciousness.
that's the idea of
Mhm.
the book and the research that I did, both in performance management as well as coming from spiritual traditions.
Okay. So we take a leader, a CEO of mid-sized company, a couple of hundred employees, very busy, and this person is at a stage where they really need a timeout. So what what could be a process this person goes through to design his retreat and to really make sure that things are working while he's not there? Because we always think, yeah, I mean, it doesn't work without me, but this is a lie, you know. I mean, if you build a business, you should have the goal to fire yourself to make the business run without you, and this is a good test. But what does a leader need to do to achieve this state, first of all, and then what does he need to do to create this time of reflection and finding purpose?
Okay, so there's several questions here. So let's take them one by one. So
Yeah.
first of all, the how to. How do you carve out the space? So I am practical in my approach, and I recognize that not everybody is going to have the opportunity to go completely off grid for
Mhm.
3 weeks or a month because you want to go to Tibet and hide in a monastery. So that occasionally some people have the luxury to do that, but that's not everyone.
I would love to do that.
Well, I've I've done shorter versions of that.
Yeah.
I eat my own medicine, but it's very hard, and I think we have to recognize that for leaders, for example, the archetype that you describe, someone in charge of a mid-sized corporation, that is very often not feasible. So,
Mhm.
point number one: let's be practical. You don't need to take 3 weeks off and fly to Costa Rica or Tibet to do that. You can start with much shorter format, including
Mhm.
take 1 hour or take 2 hours, right? If that works for you, then you can increase the duration. But what I'm asking for is not any longer than what you would take to play a game of golf or to watch a football match. So
Mhm.
that's point number one. What do you do in your retreat time? And how do you approach your retreat time? I have an acronym. It's the 4S. So the first
Mhm.
S is for silence. Disconnect your devices. The second S is solitude. You're on your own. Now, you could
Mhm.
be still surrounded by people, of
Yeah.
course. I'm not asking you to go in the middle of the desert, but be by yourself. Try to go into a nice space. So that's my third S. A nice space. We have places that put us in a nice energy, uh, and some places that depress us. So don't choose a place that depresses you. Choose a place where you're going to feel uplifted. It could be nature, it could be a cozy room, it could be the nice coffee shop around the corner where the vibes are good, right? So
Mhm.
find the right space and then go with a willingness not to play with your phone and continue watching your Netflix or your emails, but go with the intention to reconnect with yourself, right? So the fourth
Yeah.
S is reconnect with your soul. So go to that place, maybe bring a notebook with a blank sheet of paper, jot down the ideas that come up to you. And in the book, I give a lot of topics of reflection. So, for example, you said, busy, I'm too busy. I cannot disappear. What is the source of your busyness? In service of what is your busyness? So, we
Mhm.
need to reflect on these things, and we cannot reflect on these things when we are busy. We have to create that time off. So
We we are
that
in the
that's
machine. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a machine, and the only way to start the machine in a way is to start small. So don't go with, it's like the person who has never exercised in their life. There's no point booking a 4 hour session at the gym because you're going to kill yourself. So you start small. Maybe you go on the treadmill for 20 minutes and you walk
Yes.
1 kilometer. Same thing here.
Mhm. Start small, and I like this idea of yeah, starting with an hour. That even an hour is sometimes for busy people something they cannot dream of. They they are always in this hamster wheel and never disconnected from their mobile phones. And taking 1 hour is a good step and a good approach. And but then, I mean, I still want to come back to this 3 weeks in Tibet. I guess there are certain types of people who have this dream to. I really want to switch off. I really want to disappear for a while, and but I don't know how to do that. And I don't know. In your book, do you cover use cases or strategies that people can achieve that?
Yes, and there's many ways to do that. But for people who like the do-it-yourself approach, which is what I describe
Mhm.
in my book, because look, let's not forget, there's a lot of organized retreats. So there are
Yes.
retreat centers, each one with their different focus. So some have a spiritual angle, some have a health angle, some have a yoga. So you can perfectly decide to sign up for a retreat that is organized by someone else. And I have been a retreat leader for many years. So I curate retreats mostly for senior executives. and executive teams to take them away from the boardroom, away from the office, away from the noise of the city, and I bring them into nature. And once we're in nature, the level of energy changes completely, and we can finally have conversations that are open-ended without having the need to look at our watch and how much this meeting needs to finish, so we'll take it offline and all that usual jargon. So
Yeah.
you can go to a retreat that is organized by someone else, but I'm a big fan of solo retreats because you're only answer to yourself. And in the book, I describe how to curate these retreats. So from the very short format that I was describing to you, right? So the 2 hour in the coffee shop around the corner, to longer formats of several days. I would not recommend that someone starts with a 3 week retreat in Tibet, because again, I'm always in favor of starting small and being pragmatic. But if you have time, why not take 2-3 days and go to a place that you love and disconnect all the devices? That's usually, it's not so much taking the time that people find difficult, is to say, how am I going to live without my cell phone? That dependency on technology is probably the most damaging addiction that senior leaders have today. I did recently, in 2 months ago, I did a retreat in a monastery in Europe, and I disconnected for 4 days. It takes a little bit of preparation, and I give checklists in my book, how to people you want to let know, emergency contact numbers. There's no rocket science here, but you prepare it, right? So I always make sure that my secretary knows, what to do in case someone needs to reach me. My team members know what to do, and I tell my clients also I won't be reachable for 4 days. So and I tell them like 3 weeks in advance. So anything that we need to take care of is well taken care of way before I disappear on a retreat. I usually make it coincide with the weekend. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, for example, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So you have less days where you're supposed to be doing stuff that actually you're going to spend being instead of doing. So there's little tricks like that I cover in the book. I also, what do you do in the retreat, right? Because actually a retreat is more for being than for doing. So I
You need a
always say,
structure, no?
release the agenda. Yes, I'm going to give you a template of what you can do in the morning and stuff like that. But, really, the point is you release the agenda, because from the moment, if you've experienced disconnecting the devices, from the moment you do that, time opens up. It's magic. Right? You're not constantly checking your phone. You're not answering to anyone but yourself. And suddenly the universe of possibilities, and opens up, and you feel so relaxed that your brain goes immediately into a different mode, right? Instead of being constantly in beta emergency mode, I need to put out fires, very easy to go in being relaxed, and your brain goes very, very quickly in alpha when you relax, and you don't need to meditate very deeply for that. And that's when you get really creative. That's when you take a real hard look at your life and what you should be doing with your work, with your business, with your employees, with your team members. So the perspective that you take when times open up because you've disconnected is just amazing.
I always ask myself, what have we done by introducing these mobile phones into our lives? I mean, I grew up without a phone, obviously. I mean, when I compare how easy life was back then, without being constantly connected and constantly checking stuff as it is now, it's really interesting. I mean, I have apps on my phone which prevent me from checking the news, for example. So I only allow myself news access at certain times during the day. Because how often is it you're bored, you check the phone, and then you read something which raises your anxiety level, or which gets you out of your thinking process, and then you think about some problems you cannot control in the world. And not having this at your fingertips is what helps me personally. But completely switching off, it's a different level, obviously.
Sebastian, when I walk in the streets, and I live in Singapore, but I'm very sure that it's the same everywhere in the world, and I see people walking in the streets just looking at their phones, and then you take the public transport and everyone's looking at their phone, and I'm wondering who's slave to whom, because technology is supposed to be in our service to make our lives better, so we have more freedom, and I see how we've become enslaved by technology, and we are in service of technology. It's not technology that's in our service, and I find that quite interesting to notice. And I think it's a very good call that you're making here, and why these retreats are so important, because it rebalances the perspective that we have on technology. There's nothing new here. Just like you, I grew up, without mobile phones, and slow mail. That was way before emails. And the world was working just fine. Mm-hmm. And has technology really helped us to have more free time, more freedom?
Good question. I wouldn't say no. I would say no. Yes, it does not. Didn't generate more free time. It enslaves us. I mean, what is our main purpose? Keep the mobile phone, the battery charged, and keep in a Wi-Fi range. These are the two things we have to take care of.
Yeah, but you see, now you take the perspective of a leader, and I because I work with senior leaders, I always take their perspective, and a leader by definition is someone who has influence and has access to resources. Most of the clients I work with are typically CEOs of very large corporations, right? So they have enormous resources at their disposal. And so the question is how can we use technology for the greater good and not to become slaves? I love technology. I mean, look, without technology, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So in a way, the technology itself is neutral. It's neither good nor bad. It is the use that we make of it. And so as a responsible leader, what is the use that we want to make of technology? Not only communications technology, like how reachable do we want to be? Is it okay to expect that people return your emails within an hour, or is it okay to have periods where people can disconnect, for example, if they want to go on a retreat? But also now we're going to have AI coming online very, very quickly. So what is the responsible use of technology? And I find that when you're really like the hamster on the wheel that you were describing just now, and you're constantly busy, and in the mode of action, it's very difficult to take a little bit of perspective, which is why I always recommend to my clients, even if it's a short couple of hours or 4 hours where they disconnect, that will really help them regain their perspective, regain their freedom to see the world as it is and not as we believe it should be when we're in the midst of the action. And arguably you make better decisions. I also find that retreat time rebalances your energy, right? So you're not so stressed. It reduces, your stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. It puts you in a much better place to be kind and compassionate with yourself, but also kind and compassionate with others. There's nothing like a little bit of distance and silence and solitude to realize how much we depend on others and how much we love others in the most case, right?
Yeah, and how much we are conditioned by our world around us. How much we think we have to function because certain aspects are as they are. But if we step out of this world and go into a different world, then, as you said, we get completely a new perspective on things and rethink our behavior and our actions and our decisions. It's a fantastic opportunity, but I would think that many people, they have this limiting belief they cannot do that because they are so in their belief structure. What do you tell them, and how do you say convince them that this is an important step they should take?
Yeah. Well, if I have a coaching relationship with them or just a conversation, I always challenge the belief, right? That we cannot take time away. I don't call it time off really, because a retreat is not time off, right? Time off for me is to go to the beach and the beach club and have the daiquiris and party. That is time off. But retreat is actually time on, but time on for being instead of time on for doing. So there's a distinction here. But I always challenge the belief. People come with objections like, I can't go away because my teams need me. Well, is that so? Do they really need you?
Yeah.
Or you're just a freaking micromanager who feels the need to be in control and you just cannot let go? Maybe your team would be better off if you disappeared for 2 days.
Exactly.
So, is it true that your team needs you? And I'm not questioning that there's occasions where, yes, the team will need you. But is it always the case? Is it so much the case that you cannot disappear for 2 days or 3 days? So I think we have a number of assumptions because you see, we've been conditioned to be always on, 7 days, 24 hours. We're reachable. I mean, I'm talking about leaders with serious responsibilities, right? But that's conditioning. That's what we believe is expected of us because, as you said, we've had these macho attitudes of sleep is overrated and let's push through the night, guys. We're going to make this happen. And again, I'm not saying in situations of emergencies
sometimes it's
you
important.
have to be 24/7 because otherwise the business is going to crash. But that's hopefully not always the case. And we're going to push through and let's work harder. Actually, science has demonstrated that lack of sleep is terrible for decision making. People who are tired, and that's been shown as well. You push meetings 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, and you make horrible decisions. And by the way, that's something that the most skilled negotiators use against you, right? They drag you into the night. My wife is in M&As. She's absolutely. I would never want to negotiate against her. I've learned that, the very, very hard way. Never negotiate with my wife because she'll drag you until 3 a.m., 5 a.m., etc. But if you're not prepared physically and mentally to do that, you'll make the worst decision. And so there's nothing smart or macho about not respecting natural cycles. Sometimes on, sometimes off, and as part of the sometimes off, disconnecting, and if it's only 1 hour or 2 hours, so that you can regain your perspective, you can replenish your energy, you can rebalance yourself, and I think it's a very, very healthy sanity check to disappear from time to time if you're if you have responsibilities because you want to see how the business survives without you. I mean, look, one day you're going to die.
Exactly.
And then what? Then the business crashes? That's not healthy. So in a way, a retreat is a small stress test to see how the business handles without you, and hopefully, if you're a good leader, the business will handle just fine when you're not around.
I would say it's your responsibilities to design your organization that it's functioning without you, because you're responsible for all the staff members, you're responsible for the business, you have stakeholders, you have clients, and you cannot let them down just by not functioning. And you can only achieve that when you design a business that it's working on its own. And you're not working in the business, you're working on the business. And many people are not there yet. But I think, reading books like yours and taking the first step and taking an hour off and going to a nice coffee house is definitely the right approach.
And disconnect your phone.
And disconnect your phone. Yeah. So, when you run these retreats, do you have some stories of leaders who come out and maybe have a amazing epiphany or did a major change in their life and in their business because they've been on one of these retreats with you?
Yes, very, very, very often. So for the retreats that I lead, I've led two types of retreats. One is
Hmm.
retreats with a more spiritual dimensions, and so people come in their personal capacity.
Yeah.
Very often, because of the networks that I have, those people tend to be the senior executives, but they don't have to be. And we practice reflection, meditation, some movement like yoga, connection with nature, and group discussions. That,
Hmm.
because of the construct, always leads to uh, insights uh, by the mere fact that we're disconnecting and we're taking a little bit of perspective, and we can see our lives with a bit more detachment. So that always um, leads to new insights. It could be insights in how I conduct my life. It could be insights into my relationships. It could be insights in my job, and am I really fulfilled by the current situation or not. So wide range of topics that we approach in these retreats. Then the other type of retreats that I lead are corporate retreats, uh,
Hmm.
so I work with the clients of my firm. Right, I'm a partner at McKinsey, so we work with large corporations, and occasionally I bring the CEO and the executive suite on a retreat. There is going to be very different because there is an agenda to push through some barriers that are limiting the effectiveness of the team. And so very often, one of the primary barriers for teams functioning well is how much do we trust each other?
Yes.
How well do we know each other? Because we could be working side by side for years and years and years, but we don't really know each other as human beings. So part of the sessions that we do in these retreats is a discovery of who we are really as human beings, and how
Hmm.
are we going to come together as a team to be in service of a greater purpose, and what is it that we would like to achieve together, right? So it's reconnecting with our collective purpose as well as forming bonds of trust and intimacy that we didn't have before. And for that, I follow the same protocol. I bring people into
Hmm.
nature. Never do a retreat in the boardroom. It's terrible, right? The vibes are wrong, and you have people distracted all the time with some of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
team members walking in the room asking them to sign papers. I mean, it's a nightmare. So take them off site, and I do that pretty much every week now. So I was in uh, Saigon last week in a beautiful boutique hotel with the executive committee of one of the large Vietnamese banks. Next week I will be in Bangkok. The following week I'll be in the Philippines. I mean, and I take people in off site,
Yeah.
ideally with a great connection with nature, and we release the agenda. So one of the big steps, and I think it's an important lesson for every leader, actually for everyone for that matter, is let go of your attachment to outcomes. You know, we live constantly under stress because we want to achieve stuff, because we
Hmm.
believe that stuff is going to make us happy, whether it's a budget, it's a KPI, it's a salary, it's a
Yeah.
promotion. When I become
Yeah.
vice president, I will be happy. When sales reach $100 million, I will be happy. No, bullshit. You
Never.
won't be
Yeah.
happy.
Exactly.
As soon as your sales reach 100 million, you're gonna have a nice dinner with your team, and then you'll say, guys,
Now
200
we need
millions.
more.
That's the target. Let's go back, right? So
Yeah.
it's actually a recipe for unhappiness. It's not a recipe for happiness. And I tell our clients, it's the journey. You have to enjoy the journey. There's no destination. So let go of your attachment to outcomes. Release the constraint of time. And so in our discussions, in our group sessions, I also release the agenda. I say, look, let's start talking, and we'll finish when we finish.
Yeah.
And if we don't finish today, we'll continue tomorrow. It's okay. It's okay. There's no specific targets that we need to achieve. It's a retreat. It's not another day in the office. It's a retreat.
It's not a project you're going
It's not
through.
a
Yeah.
project.
Mm.
It's not a project. And when you do that, Sebastian, that's when magic happens. Because suddenly, the light bulb goes off and say, yes, let's just spend the time it takes to get to know each other.
And I think this is more and more important, especially in the times we live in, where many people working remote and new people joining a company. And I mean, when I joined organizations in the past, I worked in an office, and we went out in the evening for dinner or for a drink, and you get these people to know and you build relationships. And this is now very hard for many people because I mean, we meet each other on Zoom and Teams, and not have this physical this connection where we talk about a topic, where we go out for a drink and or sit in one room. And putting this into a retreat is, I think, is something very important that many companies should implement in their yearly planning. That for 2 3 times a year you take time off, you go somewhere as a team, and release the agenda. I like this concept, releasing the agenda.
Yeah, yeah. Really, release the time constraint. Release the
Yeah.
agenda. In the Bhagavad Gita, one of the key teachings is, you're entitled to the work, but you're not entitled to the fruits of your labor. So, do
Mm.
the work because you enjoy it. Do the
Yes.
work because it's purposeful, but let go of your attachment to rewards and outcomes. And it sounds completely counterintuitive in our Western world because we always work to achieve something.
Yes. Yeah.
But working to achieve something has the effect of making you miserable most of the time because you're miserable now, but you will be happy when. And the reality is you will not be happy when, because as soon as you've achieved it, it's like when you go shopping and you think that getting a new car is going to make you happy.
Yeah.
Well, the new car makes you happy for a week.
Exactly. Until you get a first scratch, and then you're completely miserable because this car has a scratch.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah.
Yeah. Or you buy a new toy, you buy a new phone or whatever. You think, yeah, it's nice. And then an hour later, yeah, it's just a phone, I mean, that's what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when we finally slow down and we go on these retreats and we reduce the level of stress and stimulus and excitement, then you start seeing these things for what they are, which is all illusions, and the only reality is what you have now, and so you might as well enjoy it. You might as well be grateful for what we have. Most senior executives I work with, have blessed lives. Right? There's really, nothing to complain about. They've been successful. You
Yeah.
know, they have prestige and power and money and there's no reason to always be stressed and under tension, and you see people frowning and not being happy and impatient, etc. There's really no reason for that. You're not going to achieve more
More. You achieve
because
less
you're a
when
jerk,
you're
right?
unhappy.
You just
Yeah.
relax, smile, be grateful, and if anything, you're going to be a lot more effective because people will love working with you.
I would like to finish on this because this is a very important final statement. I really enjoy this concept. I sort of flipped through your book, but I want to really spend the time to read it, because these are really important topics. And yeah, thank you so much for the work you do and the focus and helping leaders to step out of the hamster wheel. Thanks a lot, Fabrice.
Well, thanks, Sebastian. I really enjoyed the conversation.